Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching Disruptive Investing News.
So do you remember when you were a kid and you got to that age where you were always asking the question, why?
If you're a parent, you know what we're talking about, right? It seems to happen around the age of like 2, and where no matter what you say, your child says, why? And you do your best to answer. But I mean, a lot of times when they ask about something, you don't even know the answer. What do you do in those situations? I know a lot of times I felt as a parent that I should have the answer. So I would just make something up, or sometimes I got stumped. Okay, when the light turns green, we're going to cross the street, okay?
Why?
Because that's the signal that means it's safe to go.
Why?
Because when it turns green for us, the lights are going to turn red for the cars.
Why?
Because someone somewhere decided that red means stop and green means go.
Why?
And you know it goes on like that for another couple of years. And that's your child filling their brain full of information. They're trying to figure out, how does this world work? And I think the most common question they ask is why. So I just finished reading Walter Isaacson's biography of Elon Musk. There's hundreds of stories in there about Elon working at all his different companies, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, xAI. And in practically every story, he asked the question to his engineers, why?
Why does that part have to be there? Why does this robot take so long to do its job? Why are there 6 bolts instead of 4? Why?
He's like a little kid who doesn't know the answers. And then it dawned on me. Disruption follows why. Why are we doing it this way? Is it because it's the best way to do it? Or is it because that's the way we've always done it?
Is it the best way to do it? Or is it just the safest way to do it?
Did you choose to do it this way because you thought of all the other ways, or because you've seen it done like this before? Look, the way that plants and animals seem to evolve on this planet is that some offspring have some mutation that makes them different, and that difference either makes them better or worse at surviving. It's less that nature is asking why, and more that nature just keeps trying different things, throwing at the wall and seeing if it sticks. And the best things survive to make more things like that thing.
Elon doesn't claim that he knows all the answers. He's just striving to be less wrong than everyone else.
So throughout the book, you see that he comes up with different metrics for measuring the success of things. For instance, with SpaceX, he uses the metric of mass to orbit per dollar. With Tesla, he uses the metric of miles driven per intervention.
These aren't metrics taught in business school. He came up with these metrics because they measure what's important to him so that he can judge how successful he is at something.
If a company isn't constantly asking why about their products and services, then they're not constantly innovating. They're not constantly getting better. And therefore, they're pretty happy to sit back and just keep doing the same thing.
That's antithetical to disruption. Disruption is by its very nature change.
The faster you're changing your company and your products and your services, the faster you're disrupting in the marketplace. So last week, I researched the first TV infrared remote, which Zenith introduced in 1975. There were other kinds of remotes before then, but they were nowhere near as good as this new technology, and so it caused a disruption in the market. Zenith went on to lead in TV market share in the US for the next 13 years. That one innovation helped keep them on top for 13 years until Japanese companies like Panasonic and Sony came into the market.
What if Zenith hadn't become so complacent? What if they had kept asking why, and they'd kept coming out with new technologies in their TVs?
And I'll tell you why they didn't. And it's the same reason why many parents don't want to keep answering their kids when they ask why. It's because it takes a lot of work. It's far easier to sit back for 13 years and enjoy the fruits of your labor. Why push your teams to innovate day after day, week after week, if they've already have a winner?
In hindsight, it's easy to recognize a disruptive technology. In hindsight, a better TV remote is an obvious advantage. Nobody likes to walk over to their TV and change the channel.
But a lot of innovations are not obvious when you first dream them up. And that's why adoption curves for new technologies follow the S curve, because not only are new technologies expensive in the beginning, but for many of them, they don't make sense to most people. If you've been riding horses your whole life, then this thing called an automobile with 4 wheels doesn't make much sense to you. You have a barn, and you have hay, and you have horseshoes. You're all set up for horses, not for cars.
How long did it take for everyone you know to actually use email and stop sending letters? Heck, you might even have someone in your circle that doesn't use email.
I've been through half a dozen different mediums for music in my lifetime. And I remember as each one came along, it could take years sometimes for people to fully adopt the new music technology. So we had vinyl records, then we had 8-track tapes, then we had cassettes, compact discs, MP3 players, Spotify, back to vinyl records. And at each point, there was a mix of what people had, right? Because some were just stuck using the older technology. So I saw Jim Chanos on CNBC last week. You know, Jim Chanos, the guy who famously shorted Tesla.
Oh, wait, I have his. It's our Chanos Kool-Aid. We should probably, I don't know what the date on this is.
It's probably poison by now.
Probably death, which makes it better.
Yeah, so, Jim Chanos famously shorted Tesla. He lost tons of money. So when I saw him on CNBC, I thought he was going to talk about how he had seen his mistake, righted his ways. But instead, he was talking about how he's continuing to short Tesla. And the reason he gave was that Elon Musk keeps changing course. He hasn't been able to figure out how to do full self-driving, and it keeps changing. So how's he going to do it? And he said, that's a bad thing. What Chanos doesn't seem to understand is that coming up with new disruptive technologies can be super difficult, and sometimes you head down the wrong way. But what he seems to miss about Elon is that Elon isn't so set in his ways or egotistical in his thinking that he's right all the time, and he's able to recognize when he should pivot and try something else. And how he does this is by asking his very smart team of engineers the question, why? All the time. Why is this not working? So I don't know if you saw Elon testing out version 12 of FSD a few weeks ago. It did really well. It had one intervention in 45 minutes.
It's built on a video learning architecture where you put in video data through a neural net, you give it some weights, and it teaches itself how to drive.
Now, this is different than the way Elon had been doing it, right? The team had been just writing rules. See a red light, stop the car. See a green light, go. And Elon was pretty, as we read in this book from Walter Isaacson, he was pretty skeptical when he heard this new engineer who said, hey, I just started training it with AI. And Elon was like, I don't know, that sounds like a lot of work. We might not want to do that. But he trusted this engineer. He let him go down that road for a few months and try it. And then he tested it and he changed his mind. Now, Chanos seems to think that Elon made some kind of mistake to get there. And he's absolutely right. Elon made a lot of mistakes to get there. But he moved so quickly that while other companies who are working on autonomy are still trying to make LiDAR work, Tesla's already figured out a lot of the dead ends.
And look, there still may be wrong turns coming up, but my guess is that Tesla's going to figure that out a lot quicker than anyone else. And it comes down to having a leader who asks why.
Throughout Isaacson's book, there were stories of many engineers who couldn't take Elon's relentless pursuit of solving problems. Also, it probably doesn't help that Elon can get pretty dark sometimes, and not super friendly when he's trying to get results. And so you may walk away from the book and just focus on how mean Elon seems or how tough he is on his engineers. There's a lot of analogies throughout the book to Elon thinking about life as war and Elon as a general. The problems that Elon's working on are existential, planet-level problems. They generally aren't, how do I make 2 cents more on this widget kind of problem. So he's pushing hard and at a pace that is superhuman. It's more than most humans can take.
And that's why it's so mind-blowing that in just the past year or so, we've entered a new era, an era where we clearly are going to be using AI as a tool more and more, and what we think, humanoid robots as a tool more and more.
And AI humanoid robots as a tool more and more. And if you think about it, an AI humanoid robot is by definition going to be superhuman. It'll be able to work way longer and way faster than humans without complaint. And it will be able to ask why about everything it does and everything it sees, because it won't get tired of asking like we humans do, which means ipso facto, we're going to see disruptive technologies increase exponentially.
We've talked about this many times before, haven't we? Humans are really bad at exponential curves. We have a hard enough time understanding a linear growth chart, but an exponential growth chart, forget about it.
As investors, we all dream of investing in something that will grow exponentially, so you'd think we'd be better at it, but we're not. So disclaimer here, we're not financial advisors. Don't take what you're hearing as financial advice. Do your own research, come up with your own conclusions. But I don't know about you, but as an investor, I want to find companies that are disrupting the status quo before most other investors do. Let me say that one more time. I want to find disruptive companies before the market realizes their true value. By that definition, in my opinion, Tesla is that company. And it's so easy to prove because even investors that I think are pretty savvy still don't understand that it's disruptive. I mean, ask most investors who actually have invested money in Tesla why they did that. What is it about Tesla that they think is so valuable?
Go ahead and ask them. And they're going to say things like they make really great EVs with really great margins. And they're not wrong, but that's not the whole answer.
There's so much more to Tesla than just a really great EV with a great margin. They had to do so many disruptive things just to get to that, let alone to autonomy, Tesla Energy, over-the-air software updates, the supercharger network, Tesla Insurance, Cybertruck, Gigafactories, 4680 cells, lithium refining, robotaxis, Tesla bots, Dojo, all the rest.
And the rest.
And you know the investors who get it the least? They're the ones who say, I love the cars, but I don't like Elon.
Elon is the disruption. Without Elon, there's no Tesla. There's no SpaceX. There's no Neuralink, no Boring Company, no XAI, none of it. You can't have one without the other.
If Elon wasn't out there on the factory floor and in the engineering meetings every day and every night till 2 a.m, pushing people, asking why, innovating, pushing so hard till he breaks things, pissing people off, bruising egos, we'd still be thinking of Nissan Leafs when we think of EVs.
As an investor, you should learn from Elon, and you should learn from those 2-year-olds. You should always be asking why, about companies you're thinking of investing in, about your portfolio, about companies you've already invested in.
Thank you for joining us here on Disruptive Investing. We're constantly on the lookout for companies, ideas, and technologies that are different. We're trying to help you fit the puzzle pieces together so that you can see the world the way it will be, not the way it was.
It's not easy. If it were easy, everyone would be doing it, and believe me, they're not. Investing is hard. It takes work. If you'd like to support the work we do, please consider supporting us on Patreon. There, for just $1 a month, we let you in on our Patreon bonus stories every week.
We also offer our Now You Know Investor Club, where you can hang out with us on live streams with founders and CEOs of all kinds of companies. And you get access to our Investor Club Slack, which in my opinion is priceless.
Not to mention our Investor Club bonus stories every week.
The link is down below. We hope you'll consider joining us. Thanks for watching so much. We'll see you next week on Disruptive Investing.